Welcome to the Clark Connection podcast. So great to have you on here with us today. I'm your host, Aaron Clark, aka The Coach. You know me. And listen, we've got an excellent show for you today. Joining us today will be Jeremy Breaux, an entrepreneur and multiple business owner. We're going to have a lot of great discussions and some conversations, but first, I want to give a quick shout out to my sponsors. Bobbie with the Comfy Quest LLC, Andrew with Automate Integrate Professional Services, and Wayne with 7K Metals. Look, all of their information is listed below. And also, if you're wanting to connect with me, you can reach out to me on all social media at coach_A_Clark or via my website. I will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. So let's roll that intro footage and bring on Jeremy.
This is the Clark Connection Podcast, your weekly dose of inspiration and power. We'll dive deep into the stories and strategies that ignite personal growth and entrepreneurial fire. Join us as we empower you to take control, level up your leadership, and build the life you deserve. Get ready to rise, to thrive, and to finally become the leader of your own destiny. Let's go.
Alrighty, guys, and on the show with us now, we've got Jeremy Breaux, that multiple business owner, entrepreneur, that longtime friend of mine. Jeremy, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Aaron, it's great being here, dude. Good to see you.
Yeah, always. And so, Jeremy, I know you've got your hand in a couple of different things. What are the two things that you're really working on right now? You were telling me about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, so currently right now, my wife and I are percent business owners in a medical clinic, kind of a boutique medical clinic, and then also I own a roofing and construction company as well. So those are just two of the things that I'm currently doing right now. Two totally different fields, but I'm juggling both of them every day, every week.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was just thinking. It's like, hold on, you've got roofing over here, you got medical over there. How did that get going?
Well, man, it's kind of a strange story. I'm not sure how far you want to go back, but right before Hurricane Ida hit, my wife and I and some other partners were in the middle of opening up a medical clinic. Hurricane Ida hit. I'm sitting around the house, no electricity. The eye of the storm came right over my house, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do. What's my next steps? To try to bring in some income, because I wasn't sure how long it was gonna be until we can actually get the medical clinic open. At this point, wasn't sure how long it would be out of electricity, all of that good stuff. And actually, I had a cousin of mine call me and said, "Hey, you want to open a roofing company?" And I was like, "No, indeed, I don't want to open a roofing company." And him and I actually did roofing. We did roofing when we were younger, when we were 19, 20, 21 years old. But we were out there physically nailing roofs and working hard. And I kind of mentioned it to my wife later, and she said, "Well, you always say how you love to do roofing." She said, "Why don't you call that national roofing company you found online a while back?" So picked up the phone and had one bar of service. I was sitting by a window because we had no wireless service because the electricity was out. And I called this. I found on my emails some kind of way this national roofing company that I did just a little webinar with probably about 6 months prior. And I called them up and said, "Hey, are y'all looking for any roofing sales reps in Louisiana?" And they were like, "Yeah, we are." I was like, "Well, I had a hurricane literally just passed directly over my house. And the eye of the storm came over my house, and looking to sell some roofs." And so I told her my background in sales, and I told her my background of being a business owner. And she was like, "Okay." She's like, "Well, let me see what I can do." So about 45 minutes later, she calls me back and she goes, "Hey, look," she's like, "we're going to go ahead, we're going to sign you up, do some roofing sales for us." And I was like, "Well, before you send me over a contract, can I hire people to work for me? Can I'll get sales reps to sell roofs for me?" And she's like, "You want to be a sales manager?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I own my own business. I know how to manage people. I've managed sales reps. I've managed delivery drivers. This is what I've done my whole life." And she's like, "Let me check on that for a minute." So Uh, Not 15 minutes later, she calls me back, and you got to remember, I'm like sitting by a window waiting for this lady to call me back with one bar of service, and in a house with no air conditioner, because it's the beginning of September and it's hot, and the hurricane just passed. So like less than 15 minutes later, she calls me back up. She goes, "Look," she's like, "We'll hire you on as a sales manager." She's like, "How many people you want to hire?" And I already had my little cousin, so I was like, "Oh, I got one for sure." And by the end of the week, I had 8 people I hired to do roofing sales for me. And the crazy thing is that all of them knew sales, but none of them knew roofing. But me and my cousin, we knew roofing, right? And we knew sales. So it was very easy for me to train these sales reps who didn't know roofing how to sell roofs. And granted, we were in a hurricane area, a major storm passed over, and man, within 5 months, we knocked out about 400 roofs. We sold over 400 roofs when we hit it hard. In the meantime, as the time kept going, I was continually selling roofs, and my sales rep were continually selling roofs. And then, on the back end, I was working with my doctor and my other business partners to get our medical clinic up and running as time was going on. So probably about a year later, we finally got the clinic up and running, our medical clinic up and running, and the roofing sales was still going pretty well. And it was like I'd have been, crazy to let that go. And so we started working on the medical clinic and doing roofing sales, and I just figured out how to time manage myself between the two and make them both work. And so 3 years later now, into the whole roofing thing and running the medical clinic, I told my wife one night, I'm like, I might as well just study for the roofing exam and open my own business. I've always worked for myself, and so that's what I did, man. I studied for the roofing test for about a month, and I took the test. I passed it the first time, and I opened up a roofing company and got some sales reps to work for me selling roofs, and man, that's just it. I learned a long time ago, like I say a long time ago, and back in 2016, it seems like that's 8 years ago. It feels like a long time ago. Back in 2016, I owned a home medical equipment company, and I nearly lost everything overnight, like literally. Like nobody really knows that, but like um, I almost lost it all overnight because I had all my eggs in one basket, and I promised myself that I would never have all my eggs in one basket again. So that's kind of why, you know, multiple industries, multiple businesses, and I'm just pushing forward, man. I'm not looking back.
Yeah, and so I know I'm gonna come back to the medical
Uh huh.
equipment business, uh, but so how did having you'd mentioned the medical business and then being that just looked like what was it that really even sparked that? Like how were you? Because to me that was kind of a cool like having the ability to see an opportunity and go, you know what? I'm going to start this roofing company. I'm going to get into roofing sales. Uh, like what are some things that led to being able to that notice an opportunity like
Yeah,
that?
I
Does that
mean,
make sense? What I'm
yeah,
asking?
man. Listen, so opportunistic, right? So like, I saw a need, right? I seen that need, and I was like, I could provide that need. Um, a lot of people will ask me, "Hey, Jeremy, what you selling now? Hey, what you doing now?" Because people know I'm always looking for the next best thing or whatever. And some people they might clown on me or whatever, because oh, Jeremy's always selling something. But man, like I could get your roof fixed today. We can build you a garage tomorrow. I have connections in multiple industries. And so I tell people like all the time, like whatever you want, like call me. I have connections. So seeing an opportunity, number one, the opportunity wasn't just to make money. I seen a need where people in South Louisiana, they really needed a roof over their head. Like it was total destruction in South Louisiana, like more than people would know. Like probably 88% of the population where I
Hmm.
lived all got new roofs after the hurricane. So it was an opportunity to, one, help the public, help the general public, and serve. I've always been a servant leader. I've always been trying to help serve people. I have a compassionate heart. I love people. I love talking to people. I love helping people. When I first went to college, my first time, I wanted to be a child psychologist. I wanted to help children. I wanted to help people. I've always had that want and that need to help people. And so I saw an opportunity to help people, and I also saw an opportunity to make a good income. So that's how all that played into together.
Right. Yeah, and the kind of cool thing I was thinking about when you said it is how important it is, especially when you get into a situation like I mean I remember the total devastation with Ida and coming and helping down there with you guys, but how much more important it is for them to see, hey, here's somebody who's from where I'm from,
Right.
that's going to help me,
Right.
knowing that I can trust Jeremy because Jeremy lives here
Yeah,
with
and
me.
I would tell people that.
He's not from Wisconsin trying to make
Right,
money.
and I tell people that, and they're like, well, because the company I originally had signed on with that I was doing roofing sales for, they're a national company, and they didn't have a home base in South Louisiana. They had one over in the western part of the state. They had one over up in Baton Rouge, but they didn't have anything local to our area. And I tell people all the time, like my comeback was like, look, I live here. I gotta look you in the eye at Walmart. I gotta look you in the eye at Rouse's or at the gas station. When you see me, I gotta know that I did the right thing, that I did a good job, and that I live here. I'm not like a year after the storm. I'm not up and moving. I've fixed multiple roofs from roofing companies that came into town after the storm, and they did a lot of roofs, and then they took back off and they went back to South Carolina or Georgia or wherever. They ran off, and so I'm here now, and I'm actually fixing some of that mess because people did use companies from out of town. Now I'm sure there was companies from out of town that did a great job, but I'm gonna honor my word. My dad taught me from a very young age. If you don't have your word, you don't have anything. Be a man of your word, and that's what I am. I'm a man of my word, dude. And so I've always carried that with me, and I really truly feel that if I don't have my word, I have nothing.
Yeah, and so that kind of ties right in what I was going to go back to, that with the servant leadership that you were talking about that. And I'll tell people all the time that leader is just a fancy word for lead server. That's what you do whenever you're a leader. You
Yeah,
got to be out front doing all that. But that was one my dad and grandfather always talked about, is how important your word is, because if people can't believe what you're going to tell them, they're just not going to do anything with you, because people buy from people they know, like, and trust.
yeah. I had a job when I was younger, and the guy asked me, he's like, I need you to go clean the restrooms. And I'm like, I ain't gonna clean the toilets. And he looked at me and he said, if you're not willing to clean the toilets, you'll never be successful. And dude, I took that to heart because I've always wanted to be successful. And I know everybody does not define success as is different from everybody, but I've always wanted to be really successful, right? I've always wanted to be like above average, like very successful. And man, when he told me that, like it struck a chord with me. And so to this day, I will not ask a sales rep, I will not ask an employee, I will not ask anyone to do anything in any of my businesses that I'm not willing to do. Even my roofers, even these guys that are nailing roofs, like they look at me as some of them look at me as just a business owner, but they don't know, like when I was younger, I was physically nailing roofs. I was doing exactly what they were doing. So I even get up on the roof. I'm up on the roof a lot with these guys, but I'll get up there, and if there's a new crew or a new guy on the crew, and he thinks I'm just telling him to do something because I'm trying to boss him, like I show them that I know what I'm talking about, and I can show them that I know what I'm talking about because I've done it before, right? So if you're working somewhere right now, and I don't know, Wendy's or wherever, or the mall at you know T where they got JC Penney's. I don't even know he's still. And your boss tells you to go clean the restrooms. Don't not if you want to be successful, you're gonna go clean the restroom. Like you, I will never. I'll say it again. I will never ask any of my employees, sales reps, XYZ, if I haven't done it or I'm not willing to do it. And that's being a leader and showing people that you can lead by example.
Right, and the cool thing with that too is you touched on something I hadn't really touched. I like work when I'm working with people on the side and what have you. I'll often talk to them about the 5 levels of leadership, and every single person that you lead, you're on a different level with. So even though that like I mean, right now just listening to you worked up to level 4, that because you do have other people that you're leading that are creating leaders, but just because you may be on level 4 with me, that if Mark comes in here, who's brand spanking new, like you just said, Mark doesn't know that you've done all these things, and so you have to get on his level at level 1 and go work with and develop that relationship, and then show him that you can produce, and not just be like, hey, you go over there, you go over there, you.
Yeah,
That. So I thought that was really important to hear,
yeah,
especially for any of our listeners who are trying to get started.
right. And I think a lot of leaders or business owners fail because some of them, not all of them, but some of them think they're above their workers. They think they're above their employees, and I think that's when the lack of respect. Then they don't respect you. That you build a relationship with these people and you show them that you're willing to get in there and grind with them. It's you build respect. And then they're willing to go to bat for you. I could probably call 9 out of 10 of my ex-employees that's worked for me in the past, and they'll all tell you they want to come back work for me. They'll come back work for me anytime. When a previous company I've owned before, I owned the medical clinic and the roofing company. Um, and they all stay in touch with me. They text me regularly. They call me. They ask me to go to dinner when we go and catch up. And it's because I really believe in building a family atmosphere in the job force, and building a friendship. And also paying them what they're worth. Right? You pay them. If they do a good job, you pay those people. Right? Um, I had a girl that worked for me at a previous company I owned. And she would literally get mad at me if I was on vacation and I would call into the office. And she would be like, well, why are you calling? I'm like, because I need to make sure everything's going like it needs to go at the office. And she's like, I got it. Do not call. Go enjoy your vacation. But I can tell you this 100%. She knew what I wanted, when I wanted it, and how I wanted it. I knew I didn't have to question her. We worked together for so long, and she worked. I say she worked for me, but we worked together for so long that she knew exactly what I wanted, how, when, and where. And like I said, she would get mad if I called the office when I was on vacation. So, she was a great employee. So, like, I paid her well. I paid her what she deserved. And I ran into her. Funny story. I ran into her last week, and she's like, Jeremy John, call me. We need to go to dinner. We need to go catch up. And so anyway, those are things that make me feel good as a business owner, is that those people still come talk to me and want to hang out, basically.
Yeah, and another thing that you touched on too that I think is that a lot of business owners and businesses in general, they skip out on, that is there was a training process with that lady, that you had to work together and train and show them, hey, this is what I want done, but this is why I want done. I think that's important for people to know, instead of me just saying, hey, I want you to put a roof on like this, or I want you to do whatever like this, but here's why we want to do it.
Exactly.
And so when you get people like that around you, that's when you're allowed to grow. Because I finally found several that now that whenever I took vacation, I didn't call in once. Sorry, I called in twice. But one was because I got a text that said, hey, call me.
Yeah.
And the other one was we were helping train a new onboard a new person. And so I'm the final sign off on some of those things. So
Yep.
But that I mean, it's so awesome whenever you get people around you that want to work with you and not work against you,
Right. Yep.
and
100,
training them to do that.
100%.
Now, all right. So going back to the medical sale or the medical equipment.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna circle back because you said, "Hey, I almost lost it all." So tell me, how long was that business in place, and then what
Yeah,
happened?
so I'm kind of a late bloomer, I guess you could say. So I went to college right after high school. I quit college. I went roofing, and then I ended up going work at another job in a warehouse. And I was working in a warehouse, and I was 24 years old. On my 24th birthday, I can remember sitting in a warehouse and thinking to myself, I'm at a dead end job, like, and I've always wanted more for myself, right? And at 24, I was like, man, I'm going back to college. I'm going back to college. I'm going to get a degree. I'm too smart for this, you know, so I got to do this. So I called my mom and I said, hey, mom, I said, I want to go back to college, and she's like, okay. She's like, what you need? And I was like, I just need you to let me move in with you for a little while. I was like, not ashamed to ask, I needed the help. Like, I needed to save money. I needed to go to college. I was 24. And she's like, okay, as long as you go to school, she's like, we good. I'm like, awesome. So I was actually at 24, I went back to college. I wanted to be a physical therapist. So I started working for a physical therapy company. Uh, 2 years later, I started working for a medical equipment company. I learned about home medical equipment, DME. I learned about medical equipment company through a friend of mine. And so he introduced me to these guys that owned a DME company. I started selling home medical equipment. Well, by the time I graduated college, I was 28 years old, and I was making more money selling medical equipment than I would have made as a physical therapist. So me, in my brain, I'm thinking, hey, don't pay to go to school. Let's open a medical equipment business. So I found somebody to back me financially. I opened up a medical equipment business, and for a year of my life, I hustled 7 days a week, hardly any vacation or time to myself, because it was me and me, and then it was me and a secretary. And I built that business for a year and just grinded and grinded till I was able to hire a delivery driver. So then it was me, a secretary, and a delivery driver. And um, and then next thing you know, I have me, two girls in the office, two delivery drivers, two respiratory therapists, um, and a high school kid that would come in and clean the warehouse. So I built that business. I built it, ran it for 8 years, and due to different regulations and things like that, reimbursements got cut, and like seriously, like overnight, I almost completely lost it all. And so that was in 2016, and I'm gonna tell you this: in 2016, I thought I was a great person. I didn't think I need any type of personal growth. Like I was like on top of the world. I owned my own business. Like I was, I was sailing. And a friend of mine introduced me to some personal growth. And I started reading, and I started figuring out, hey man, maybe I need this personal growth. Maybe I need this stuff. And I've always been deep in my faith and close to God. And there's just some little things that I was missing, and personal growth taught me that. Personal development. It taught me that. And in 2018, I was actually able to sell the business instead of losing it. I actually sold it. I grinded it out and sold the business in 2018. And then I picked up doing medical sales from 2018 until 2021. And in 2021 is when me and one of my doctors that I was selling medical supplies to and some other business partners decided to join forces and open up the medical clinic. So that's how all that happened. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, and so that was probably about the time that we met. Was probably around 2015, 2016.
2016. Yeah.
That
Yep.
uh, um, And so that's why I was like, wow.
Yep.
So I didn't realize that that had happened because I remember you had the medical equipment, that
Yeah, and
business,
look, no,
and I remember you selling it, but I didn't remember know that that was what
yeah, not
happened.
many people. I mean, I don't go and I don't broadcast my business at all. Like, that was a valley that I had to get through. In 2016 when I nearly lost everything, I had to get through that valley. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of prayers, a lot of praying. I'm not scared to admit that I am only where I'm at today because of my faith. If it wasn't for my faith, I wouldn't be where I'm at. And so I give it all to God. Pray every night. Asking God for guidance. And so that's the only reason I'm here now is God seeing me through it. So we all go through valleys, right? We all stand on top of a mountain, and we all go through valleys at different times, and those struggles make us better people, right? Those I've always come out of a valley a better person. I've always learned a lesson. There was always a lesson in it. I've always come out of that a better person every time. And people will tell you that, and you'll say, "Oh yeah, you hear that from everybody." People just say that, but until it really happens to you, then you can believe it. You'll believe it and become a believer. So I just always wish people would push hard and get through those valleys instead of letting it eat them away.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at it, I mean, everybody wants the mountaintop experience, but what grows on top of a mountain?
Nothing.
Nothing. The growth has to happen in that valley when we're down, and I don't think enough people appreciate that what happens while you're in that grind. Much like you were saying when you started the business. Like, I mean, Jeremy, how many hours? Like you said, you work 7 days a week, but how many hours a day would you guesstimate you were working?
It's so sometimes I drop my kids were younger. I dropped the kids off at daycare, um, and I'd get to the office like at 8:30, 8:30, and I would look at the list of deliveries because I had to do all the deliveries, right? I had to run the business. I had to do the deliveries, so I had to schedule my day. I mean, dude, I was getting home at 7, 8 o'clock at night a lot of times, sometimes 9, 10 o'clock at night, because I was so far. I was maybe an hour or 2 hours away from the house doing these deliveries. I wasn't turning anything down. I was taking anything that would come my way because I knew I had to make it, right? So I couldn't pick and choose what what patients I wanted to serve and what patients I didn't want to serve. I had to serve all of them, right? No matter how far away they were from the office. So I had to schedule my day to get to all of them in a timely fashion, and there were some nights I was putting together hospital beds 9 o'clock at night, and I can remember this one time 9 o'clock at night in the middle of the summer. Old man's house. He had no air conditioning in his house. I don't even know how it was legal for him even to live there. He had box fans in the window, and 9 o'clock, I was sweating, just drenched in sweat, putting together a hospital bed for this old man. And I mean, he had a caretaker there, but it was me, the old man, and the caretaker. And I was an hour and 45 minutes away from my house. And I can remember getting home like 11 o'clock at night, and we had a newborn, and my wife had to get up the next morning to go to work because she couldn't quit her job because I had a company, because I was building the company at the time, right? And so there was anywhere from I would tell you there was some 8 hour days. Yeah, there were some 8 hour days. There were some 12, 13, 14 hour days, and I'm telling you, dude, it was a year straight. It was a year straight till I was able to hire a delivery driver to do that side of the job for me so I could just run the business. But that was a sacrifice I was willing to take.
Yeah, and that's one thing I think people often overlook is the beginning struggles, what it takes to get going,
Right.
and overlooking how everybody wants to see, like right now, hey, man, look at Jeremy, he's so successful, he's got it going on. That I wish I was where Jeremy was, and I would tell him you can be where Jeremy is, but you got to be willing to go spend that 14, 15, 16 hour day,
Yeah,
7 days a week for a year, two, three,
one
to get
one
there.
hundred
It's
percent.
tough.
Well, it is tough, and I will say this. There's a lot of other things that go on in the background of a successful business that people don't see. I read a something somebody posted on Facebook or Instagram the other day that small business owners have enough stress every day that would actually kill the normal person because they don't realize the stress that small business owners are actually under, right? Regular people couldn't take that kind of stress, you know. But I thrive. I thrive off of not the stress, but also off of getting through it, right? Like I'm not gonna let it beat me. Um, I thrive, and I work hard to not let anything keep me down. But yeah, you did say it right, Aaron. I mean, people could look at my life, and this by no means is bragging, but some people might look at my life and say, "Man, Jeremy's successful. He's got this and he's got that and he's got," but they don't know what it took to get to this point, right? They have no clue. They don't know the sleepless nights I had. The sleepless nights praying. Let me just tell you that it would all work out so I could get to this point, right? So, yeah.
Oh yeah. They just like, please let me pay that bill tomorrow. It's due tomorrow, and I got this much money in the bank. Please, Lord.
Yeah, you know, those those days, bro. But you got to go through them. You got to go through them, and anybody could do it, but you got to be willing to do it.
Yeah,
You got to be willing to do it. And I will tell you this too:
right.
you got to have a
It's
good support system. You got to have a good support system, and my wife has been so supportive of everything I've done. She um she told me one time, "Do you know how many adventures?" She calls all my business thing. "You know how many adventures we've been on?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I do." And she sits there and she supports me, and she's not scared to take the ride with me.
no, and that's crucial to be able to do that, and it's another thing that I think I don't know if you've looked into Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's. I love his story, and that he had gone. It sounds very similar. He had this business failed, had this business failed, had this business failed, had this sales thing failed, and then finally got his hands on McDonald's. And I mean, that didn't turn out too bad for him.
No, it did.
It only took him till he was 56.
Yeah, but if you look at his story, he traveled the country. He hustled. He he traveled. He got it done.
He did. And so you were talking because I'm like one of my favorite things to talk about with people is personal growth. And so you talked about in 2016 that journey really started then.
Hmm.
Now, like what was it that you started like working on and grow, and then like how has that continued and shaped what you're doing
You,
now?
you know, it was the biggest thing for me, and it was perspective on how to look at things. Like, you wake up in the morning and it's raining outside. What perspective are you gonna take? Are you gonna be doom and gloom because it's raining and you can't get nothing done, or it's raining outside and the water is you don't have to water the plants because the rain's watering the plants for you now? Like it's all about perspective. It's all about turning negatives into positives and your mindset, right? So I always say negativity breeds negativity, positivity breeds positivity. So if you hang around negative people, you go down a negative path. If you hang around positive people, you go down a positive path. So the biggest thing I like was that hit me. It hit me like bam. It's like you got to change your perspective. You got to change your thinking on how you look at things. Um, and man, I've taken that a long way about perspective. Because there's days, believe me, there's days being a business owner that you're like, man, why am I doing this? Why? You know, and then and then there's the days that you just realize you like, yeah, that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm doing it. So that was one of the biggest things I took away from personal growth. Now, I mean, we can go on and on about personal growth, but I mean, we would need, a day and a half for that.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt, and and that's one of the reasons why I started doing the podcast is that I was teaching my sons, that we race motocross and do golf, and so nothing we do is anything remotely close to where we are. So I mean, we're always in the vehicle, hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, going to whatever, and we would go through and I'd teach them on these things, and they'd like, hey, start doing TikTok videos, Dad, and then people started liking them. I had somebody touch base with me about doing a podcast, and I was like, well, cool, because this is stuff more people need.
Yeah.
They need to know about personal growth and development, because that I think it's like 20% of people that like never read a book, or sorry, it's like half of college graduates never read a book again. And they never crack it. Like, that's wild to me that you can go. I mean, it's something close to like 80% of Americans never read a book again after high school. And I mean, that your mind is just. I mean, imagine if you weren't trying to get better and grow, and that rule and regulation you were talking about, they shut your business down. Would you have had the mental fortitude to get back up and go, all right, I'm gonna keep pushing?
So
I mean, most people that are broke.
yeah. So I guess personal growth came around at the right time, right? Because like, I could have filed for bankruptcy, right? I could just let it. I could have just, but or I could have been like, you know what? I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna make it work. So, I had to lay off people, which isn't always a good thing, right? And then I was running the business, me and a secretary, just like I started. But I built it up to what it was, and then I was back down to two people, because of reimbursement cuts. Because we're insurance based company, and the insurance reimbursements were cut in half. So I had to do what I had to do. But for the next 2 years, I just grinded out again, But I was able to come out of it, and I didn't have to file bankruptcy, or the company went upside down. So yes, it was the personal growth at that time definitely came around at the right time.
Right. And so how did that shape what you're doing now as a business owner with the roofing and with the medical clinics?
So again, not having all my eggs in one basket, right? So I don't just own a roofing company, I'm not just a part owner of a medical clinic, right? Multiple streams of income. It's taught multiple streams of income. And then as far as the personal growth side, like you asked, is that I've learned how to manage my time better and be there for people when I need to be there for people, like for employees, talk them through different situations, help them. I have a situation right now with one of my employees, devastating to her, and I'm really cautious on how I handle the situation with her, because I want her to come out of it on top, right? So I sit and I talk with her, but also I sit and I listen, right? Because we have to listen. We have to listen to what other people's needs are, what their needs and what their wants are, and we can't just tell them our opinion, but listen and form an educated answer and help them through that tough time they're going through. So that's where a lot of personal growth comes into play, and trying to keep in such a bad situation like it is for her, trying to keep it positive, even though I know it's hard. But hey, look at the positive side. This is positive outcomes, So it's helped me in that sense as well.
Yeah, and that's a good one too. It's to help other people. You got to listen with the intent of listening, not just
Right.
listening to give an answer. But I know that, like, I'm thinking, well, as I'm sitting here listening to you tell about it, I'm like, oh, I could. And it's like, stop, just listen, Aaron.
Yeah, look,
It's hard for us to do.
right. And Aaron, I'll be honest with you, like, like we both know this, like we need other people to fill our bucket so we can fill other people's buckets, right? So, and you and I try to talk as often as we can, but we're both busy. And so when we do get that time, you know, and we have another friend that you and I talk to a lot as well. It's like when we get that time to talk and actually, like, I'll listen to what you're saying because there's probably sometimes you call me and I need my bucket filled, right? And there's probably sometimes you call me or I
Yeah,
call you and you need your bucket filled. So so we can't fill somebody else's bucket unless our bucket's full.
right. Yeah, and I was going to say, I think one of the ones that we've done pretty good with some of that is just that I'm trying to remember what it was. She'd called me a couple months ago, and I said, all right, so you calling for advice or you calling to complain?
I would
And
go,
you're like, just complain. And I said, all right, I got you, bro.
yeah, yeah,
But that's important too. Like, I didn't, I wasn't thinking about that until you just reminded me of it. That it's important to have those people in your life that you can call, and it's like, look, I need to talk to somebody about something. And I think especially, for us males, it's good to have our male friends. It's good for our women to have their female friends.
right,
Um, because there's just certain things I can call you and say, all right, Jeremy, we really need to stop spending money, and you just go, no, so he's spending too much money. Whereas if I said that Kristen or Dawn, they might be like, good night. They were broke. We're about to go under. We're filing for bankruptcy. And you're like, I just meant don't buy Starbucks twice a day.
right,
That's it.
right. They take it to a whole nother level. Like I don't know how they twist those words to make them sound like I said something like that or we said something like that, but they twist it. I'm like, where'd that come from? So,
Yeah, but it's good. And a couple of guys that or one that I was listening to, um, it's a Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. That's a pretty good one. He had a guy on there talking about that and just the importance of having the same sex friends that really bounce stuff off, and it's not really good for you to always use your spouse as the sounding board, because my spouse, if I just come home and like, man, this is going on at work, this is blah 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 blah, that she might start taking it personal, but vice versa. That she may be coming home to tell me this is going on at work, and I'm like, all right, let's solve this problem. And
yeah,
she's like, no, I just need to talk to you about it.
yeah,
So it's good for us to have those both.
yeah. And man, the crazy thing is sometimes you want to sit there and you want to be a good listener for your spouse because that's what you like, man, I just need to listen right now. But then that's when they're like, you don't have nothing to say? I'm like, I'm listening to what you need to say. you know? So sometimes you don't know whether you need to listen or you need to give them the answer. Yeah, so, but it's all good, and especially if you have a good relationship and you have a spouse that supports what you do. Um, I know we're joking about it right now, but you can always together you can always get through those things. I had a priest tell my wife one day, um,
Oh yeah,
y'all business will never be successful unless y'all working on it together. And that kind of hit me. I was kind of because I was always like, I'm the man, I'm the provider of the family. Like I don't want my wife to do nothing. I don't want her to be in the business. But um, I've completely changed my mind. I'm to the point where I just want her maybe just work with me and not do what she does and just come work with me. So so good. Like I said earlier, good support system. You got to support each other in whatever each other's goal is.
yes, yes. I mean, I agree. And so, I mean, I know we picked on him like he said, but man, there's no doubt that obviously you love your wife. I love my wife for that. I mean, I have told mine she can leave whenever she wants, as long as she packs my bag so I can go too.
Yeah.
So, but
So,
and so now, I mean, I know we're kind of winding down a little bit, getting a little bit close to the end. So tell us, all right. So I gotta know the multiple businesses, all the different. How did the entrepreneur journey start for Jeremy?
man, so I've always I've always known I wanted to be a business owner, right? And I just thought magically I was going to be a business owner. But one day, I was in 11th grade, and I remember this day. I was in 11th grade, and I came home from school, and I don't. This was like 1997, 98. I came home from school, and one of the talk shows were on, like Donahue or Ricky Lake or one of them. And I could remember, almost positive it was like Ricky Lake or something. And they were interviewing the guys who started FUBU. I don't know if you remember the FUBU clothing, the shoes.
I remember Fubu.
So, and they were talking about
That's
entrepreneurship, right? And man, I was like, I gotta come up with something. I gotta start a business. Like, I need. So, I was in 11th grade. I started a mobile car washing business. I printed a bunch of flyers. My best friend who lived next door was in 11th grade. I'm like, dude, we starting a company. It's gonna be J&J Car Wash, J&J Mobile Car Wash. I'm like, we gonna wash people's cars after school, and because so back up, football had ended, right? So there was no more after school practice. There was no more football games, you know. So when football ended for me, sports ended for me because I didn't play any other sports. So after school, instead of going to football practice, I needed to find that gap to fill. And I was like, we're gonna wash cars. That's what we're gonna wash cars. So, man, I got a vacuum cleaner. I threw in the back. I had a 1981 Toyota Cressida. Look that up when you got time. I had an old car. This is 1997. I had a 1981 Toyota Cressida. I had this old vacuum cleaner, a bucket, some soap, some rags, some chamois, and I printed flyers. And I started going to businesses around the area and saying, "Hey, introducing myself. Hey, I'm trying to wash your car. I'm trying to wash your car, make some money after school." And I was handing out flyers, man. And believe it or not, we started washing cars for some prominent people in the area. Now we're high school kids. We're 17 years old. We're washing cars for some pretty prominent people, some pretty prominent business owners. And I'm like telling my buddy, I'm like, man, this is awesome. We doing it. So we roll into summertime and we still washing cars. But we're doing some little side jobs as well, you know, because cars isn't the only thing that's gonna get it. Cutting grass, washing cars, cutting grass, washing cars. So school starts up again. Of course, football season. This is my senior year.
I'll say hopefully only doing one and one or the other, and not both at the
Yeah.
same time, cutting grass while washing
So
cars.
school starts up, football season, car business kind of, we're not washing cars anymore because we're concentrating on football. And then when football ended again, I just started washing cars again. Well, my buddy who was my neighbor, he went and get a job, I forget where, but then I had another friend of mine who was like, man, I want to wash. He calls me up, he's like, dude, I want to wash cars with you. I'm like, okay. And his dad was a doctor, so we started getting all his dad's doctor buddies. So then we was washing all the prominent people in town's cars. So
Nice,
so
nice.
we did that until we graduated, and then I thought I was going to go to college and I was just going to be successful overnight, and it didn't happen that way. It took me, like I said, till I was 24 years old to realize I wanted to go back to college, and not till I was 26 years old. Um, that I started selling medical equipment, and not till I was 28 years old. So 18 to 28, so 10 years before, from washing cars, my first business at 17, 18 years old, and then 18 to 28 years old whenever I opened my next business. So there was a 10-year gap. And I've worked for myself ever since.
Yeah, and I think, talking about the overnight success, they say overnight success are 15 years in the making. So, I mean, no, it's close. I mean, 10 years.
Yep.
But, I mean, so when you started the medical equipment, how long did it take before you started making money? Like there was a profit, not like, hey, I'm breaking even or,
Yeah. So, be honest with you. So, I quit my job in like October, and it wasn't until April that we actually got the doors open. It took like 6 months to actually get the doors open. So the financial backers who backed me were actually paying me for 6 months to do all the steps to get the clinic open. So we wasn't making money, right? These financial backers were just spending money. And then we got the doors open in April. So you go April, May, June, July, August, September. September, another hurricane hits. The financial backers tell me, they said, hey, we need our money back. We need to sell the company. And I'm like, I just spent 9 months of my life getting this company open. I'm like, I'm not just giving it up. And he's like, well, I need my money back. The storm's about to put me under. And so I ended up having to hire a broker, financial broker, to broker a deal for me to keep my company. So once I had my company and I kept my company, um, I'm trying to think how long. Probably another, I don't know, 6 months before I was able to hire a delivery driver. So it took a while before we can actually hire somebody to help us, to help me and the secretary that were running the business for a year by ourselves.
yeah, and and I think that's one the important that for people to realize when you get started with that business, you're not gonna hit the home run. It's not gonna be, and then if you do, are you really gonna appreciate it whenever the hard times do come? So that was awesome.
I mean, Aaron,
And so
I'll be
as we're
honest
kind of
with
closing,
I'll be honest with you,
yeah,
for people who want to start businesses or people who are in businesses right now. If people would only know how many times I failed at other businesses before I had a business that actually worked, they would have quit a long time ago. They would have threw their hands in. They would have quit. But I just never gave up.
yeah. And that was actually leads into what I was going to ask was, kind of last question. What would you tell somebody who is starting out if they were getting started with a business? What would you tell them?
You're gonna have to fail to succeed. You will. You're gonna have to fail to succeed. At some point, you may become successful. In time, you're gonna lose it, and then you just need to know where to pick back up and become successful again. Most successful people have failed multiple times before they become successful and stayed successful. Um, talk about Robert Kiyosaki. Um, you know, he's my go-to. Robert Kiyosaki. I mean, he'll tell you, um,
Yeah.
Rich Dad Poor Dad. You know where I'm going with it. So, a lot of people, but think about Mike Lindell, My Pillow. You know, think about his story. Think about where he was.
Hmm.
Um, so you look at those guys who were at the bottom, completely at the bottom of their life, and they all came out of it and became successful. And so never give up, push through the valleys. Never give up, push through the valleys, and you're gonna come out on top.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a good one to close on right there. Be comfortable with failing. You can, man, we look at it such the wrong way. I think Robert Kiyosaki really talks about that. School is failing us as a society because we teach you, Jeremy, if you can't get it right this first time, you're a failure, and yeah, you suck. That versus, all right, you didn't get it right. What happened? Why didn't you get it right? So I think that was a good one. So, Jeremy, if any of my listeners that wanted to get in touch with you about anything from roofing to medical, how do they reach out to you? How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can reach me at jeremy@tswrc.net for any roofing or construction needs. On the medical side is jeremy@cypressmedicalsolutions.org. So those are my two email addresses for the medical and the roofing side. You can look us up at cypressmedicalsolutions.org, and I have a new website that's being built right now for the roofing company, so that's under construction.
All right, and guys, that is all listed below. That we're gonna have it down there for you. So if you need to get in touch with Jeremy, you need a new roof, hit him up. He's from here. He's in South Louisiana with us. He's gonna be honest with you because he doesn't want to look you in the eyes and say, "Yeah, I cheated
Right.
you." So great guy to have there in medical. Very outstanding, upstanding guy. So, well, Jeremy, I appreciate you hopping on. We're gonna definitely have to do this again, man. We got a lot more we talked about.
Yep, definitely. I enjoyed it, Aaron. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
What an excellent episode that was. Wasn't Jeremy great? Look, lots of takeaway from our conversation. Look, we talked about being an entrepreneur requires juggling multiple things all at once. That opportunities can arise from the unexpected circumstances, even natural disasters. Do things happen to me or for me? We talked about the importance of mindset and the power of positivity. And personal growth and development is huge for the business owner and entrepreneur. And you have to be willing to fail and understand that failure leads to success. And how important it is to never give up. It's an essential trait for any entrepreneur. And look, if you are looking for leadership or personal growth training for you or your team or event, reach out to me. I'd love to be able to help you on your journey and to inspire you and your team. Look, all of my contact information is listed below. And remember, you don't need to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Keep leading, keep growing, and keep innovating. Until next time, stay inspired and connected, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Clark Connection Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Clark Connection Podcast, where my goal is to add value to you. Make sure you like and follow the show. You can also connect with me via my website, coachaclark.com, or on all socials at coach_A_Clark. The links are in the description. Huge thanks to my sponsors, Wayne with 7K Metal Associates, Bobbie at A Comfy Quest LLC, and Andrew at Automate Integrate Professional Services. We look forward to bringing you more great content. See you next week.